Hello, my name is David Hobbs. I was a student at Grossmont High School for all 4 years, and after I finished high school, I went to San Diego State for a couple of years. And when, by the time I finished my sophomore year, I wasn't quite sure still what I wanted to do, so I decided that I would take a break and try to figure it out. And I joined the Army. And the Army, after a few months training, sent me to Munich, Germany. Nice place to be, cosmopolitan city, lots of things to do there, and then close to other countries which I traveled around to. And after some year or so in Europe, I decided that I really did want a career as a Foreign Service officer because it would give me a chance to work abroad. So when I finished my Army time, I went to Goethe Institute for a few weeks, or actually a few months, to perfect my German, because the only German I had is what I taught myself. And when I finished those classes, I went back to California in April of 1964, applied to the University of California at Berkeley, was admitted, and in September I took up my studies there of political science. It was kind of an uproar in those days. There was the anti-war movement and the free speech movement, but I spent my time studying more than getting involved in all that. And in my first year, I decided that I really should take the Foreign Service exam for practice because I had heard that it was quite difficult. I did take it and, to my surprise, passed it the first try. And so I was able to finish my studies by June of 1966 without ever giving another thought to what I was going to do after I finished college. So in the summer of '66, I got in my car and drove back to Washington and entered the Foreign Service. After a few months of orientation, I was sent to my first tour, which was in Hamburg, Germany. And over the next 30 years, I was assigned to not only Germany, but to Sao Paulo, Brazil, London, England, Osaka, Japan, Bogota, Colombia, Georgetown, Guyana. And amongst those tours, I also went to Washington several times on tours. Each post, I learned the language if I didn't already have it. And while serving in those posts, I spent a great deal of time getting to know the country's history and the culture to make the most I could out of every possible moment I had abroad. Every post had its challenges, but every post had its benefits as well. Perhaps the most challenging post of all was Bogota, Colombia. When I arrived there in 1986, the narcotics trafficking organizations were perpetrating a great deal of violence, and there were several guerrilla movements active at the same time. The most likely person to be elected president was assassinated, and the Americans got deeply involved in providing a great deal of assistance to Colombia. When my tour in Colombia ended after 6 long years, because I was extended in order to be a deputy to the ambassador for a couple of years, I went back to Washington to be the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Consular Affairs, managing consular operations around the world. After 3 years of that, the president appointed me to be ambassador to Guyana. This perpetrated a bit of a personal crisis because my wife, who I'd met at the Goethe Institute all those years ago, and who I married in Hamburg during my first post, decided she did not want to go to Guyana with me because she never did want to go very much to posts unless they were in Europe, Japan, and this was definitely not one of those. So we decided to get a divorce, and I went to Guyana single, and while I was there, I met a woman who, a few years later in Washington, I married. When I got back to Washington after my tour as ambassador to Guyana, I could realize that my career was pretty much to the end. I achieved about everything that I was going to achieve. And I was offered a job by a major contracting company, which had operations with the State Department and the Defense Department, and I decided to take it. So in 1997, I left the Foreign Service, and from 97 to 2018, I worked with several different contractors on many different contracts with operations in Colombia, Mexico, Bolivia, Indonesia, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. In 2018, I decided that it was really time for me to retire, and I did so, except I still do a little bit of consulting work every month, maybe 4, 5, 6 days. My wife and I have homes in Washington and Bogota. We spend time in each city every year, and we travel some. I had a wonderful career. I don't think I would have ever guessed that I would have this the career when I was still a student at Grossmont. I don't think anybody who knew me at Grossmont would have thought I'd have this career either. But I had many interesting issues I dealt with, consular and diplomatic issues around the globe for many years. Worked with some excellent people, some fantastic people, and couldn't be happier. I am in great health so far. Last year, my wife and I went to Peru, went to Cusco and Machu Picchu, climbed about ruins and over hills at altitudes as high as 12,500 feet and didn't have any trouble at all. So my hope is that I will be able to continue to travel in Europe, South America, Africa, and Asia for some years to come. And thank you very much for listening.